How does someone disappear from a floating fortress? It was March 24th, 1998. The Caribbean sun had just begun to rise, casting a warm glow over the pristine ocean. On board the Rhapsody of the Seas, a family vacation was about to take a dark and tragic turn. Amy Lynn Bradley, a vibrant 23-year-old, was last seen by her father in their cabin at around 5:30 that morning. She had been lounging on the balcony, enjoying the calm of the early morning sea. Less than 30 minutes later, when her father awoke again, she was gone. No one heard her leave. No one saw a thing. Panic set in. The ship was massive, housing hundreds of passengers and crew members. Amy's family immediately sounded the alarm, pleading with the crew to halt the disembarkation process as the ship docked in Curaçao. They were certain Amy hadn't left voluntarily, but their pleas went unheard. The cruise staff insisted she must have wandered off or fallen asleep somewhere on board. Passengers were allowed to disembark, and the search efforts, limited and delayed, yielded no answers. In the hours that followed, Amy's parents, Ron and Eva, and her brother Brad began a harrowing journey of unanswered questions. How could their daughter simply disappear on a tightly controlled ship? Why weren't security measures taken immediately? As the day wore on, one horrifying realization set in. Amy Lynn Bradley had vanished, and the Rhapsody of the Seas, a ship built to provide safety and comfort, had become a scene of inexplicable mystery. For years, this case has puzzled investigators and haunted the public. With each passing day, the mystery deepens and the chilling question remains, what happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? Amy Lynn Bradley wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a young woman brimming with life, a force of energy who left an impression on everyone who met her. A recent graduate of Longwood University in Virginia, Amy had excelled both academically and athletically. Her love for basketball showcased her competitive spirit, but it was her warm personality that truly stood out. Friends described Amy as fearless and vibrant, someone who could walk into a room and light it up with her smile. She had a unique bond with her family, particularly her younger brother Brad. Their playful banter and sibling camaraderie were evidence of how close-knit the Bradleys were. But Amy wasn't just about fun and games. She was driven and determined, qualities that landed her a promising new job waiting for her after the cruise. This vacation was meant to be a celebration, a well-earned break before embarking on the next chapter of her life. Yet, there were hints of caution. Amy was not one to blindly trust people, and she had an instinct for sensing when something was off. Did she feel uneasy about something or someone on the cruise? Her family had no reason to think this trip would end in anything but cherished memories. Amy was young, ambitious, and ready to take on the world. And then, in the blink of an eye, she was gone. A vibrant life, filled with so much promise, vanished without explanation. And as we explore her story, one thing becomes painfully clear. Amy's disappearance wasn't just a mystery. It was a tragedy that stole a bright light from those who loved her. The Caribbean cruise aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas was supposed to be a celebration, a moment for the Bradley family to relax and revel in their accomplishments. It was March 21st, 1998, when they boarded the luxurious ship. For Amy Lynn Bradley, this trip marked a well-earned break before she stepped into the next phase of her life. The Rhapsody of the Seas promised adventure and elegance. With sprawling decks, glimmering pools, and vibrant nightlife, the ship was a floating paradise. Amy, her parents Ron and Eva, and her brother Brad were ready to make the most of it. The first few days were everything the family had hoped for. They explored the ship, enjoyed its amenities, and soaked in the beauty of the turquoise waters that stretched endlessly around them. Amy, with her lively personality, quickly caught the attention of those on board. But it wasn't all carefree moments. Amy had confided in her family that she felt uneasy around some of the crew members. Their attention toward her seemed overly familiar, perhaps even intrusive. Still, no one could have anticipated the nightmare that was about to unfold. The Bradleys were settling into the rhythm of their vacation, completely unaware that this dreamlike escape would soon turn into their worst fear, a daughter and sister disappearing in plain sight. The Rhapsody of the Seas was meant to be a sanctuary, a space where the Bradleys could unwind and reconnect. Instead, it would become the last place they saw Amy, transforming their lives forever. The night of March 23rd was alive with music, laughter, and the carefree energy that a Caribbean cruise promises. Amy and her brother Brad found themselves at the ship's nightclub, a lively hub where passengers and crew mingled freely. The two siblings, always close, were in high spirits as they danced and chatted with others aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas. Amy's natural charisma made her a magnet for attention. Fellow passengers and even crew members gravitated toward her as the night unfolded. Among them was a bartender and other crew members who seemed particularly eager to engage with Amy, perhaps too eager. She danced, laughed, and enjoyed herself, but those who knew her later recalled that something about the crew's interest didn't sit right. As the night wound down, Amy and Brad returned to their family's cabin. The Bradleys were tucked in for what should have been a peaceful night of sleep before docking in Curaçao the following morning. But behind the laughter and the party atmosphere was something more sinister at play. No one knew that this would be the last time anyone saw Amy in a carefree moment surrounded by her loved ones. Whatever happened after the nightclub remains shrouded in mystery, a puzzle with missing pieces that have haunted her family and investigators for over 2 decades. The ship's nightclub, once a place of joy and celebration, would become the starting point of endless questions. Who was watching Amy that night, and were they planning something no one could have imagined? The early hours of March 24th began quietly on the Rhapsody of the Seas. The Bradley family's cabin was still, the gentle rocking of the ship and the sound of the waves lulling most passengers into a deep sleep. At approximately 5:30 that morning, Amy's father, Ron, woke briefly and noticed her sitting on the cabin's balcony. She appeared peaceful, her gaze fixed on the vast, dark ocean. She was likely smoking a cigarette, enjoying the calm before the day's activities. Satisfied that all was well, Ron returned to bed. When he awoke again at 6 o'clock, the calm had been shattered. Amy was gone. Her bed was untouched, and her shoes were still in the cabin. The only items missing were her cigarettes and lighter items that suggested she might have stepped out for a brief moment. But where could she have gone? The ship was massive, yet it was a controlled environment where every movement should have been traceable. Ron immediately searched the cabin and nearby areas, growing more frantic with each passing moment. Amy was not the type to wander off without a word, especially in the early hours of the morning. The idea of her slipping overboard seemed unlikely. Amy was a strong swimmer and deeply cautious. There was no sign that she had been near the railing. What could have happened in those 30 short minutes? This was not just a disappearance. It was a void, a moment that defied explanation. A young woman, vibrant and full of life, had simply vanished from a floating fortress in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. The clock was ticking, and the mystery of Amy's disappearance was only beginning to unfold. Panic set in the moment Amy's family realized she was gone. Her father, Ron, rushed to notify the ship's crew, reporting that his daughter had vanished without a trace. It was still early morning, and every second felt critical. The Bradleys were certain that Amy was still somewhere on board, perhaps lost, injured, or worse, taken. Ron and Eva pleaded with the crew to lock down the ship, to halt the disembarkation process until a thorough search could be conducted. The Rhapsody of the Seas was a vast vessel with countless rooms, hidden corridors, and access points. If Amy was still on board, they believed there was no time to waste. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. The crew, dismissive at first, suggested Amy had likely wandered off, was asleep somewhere, or had stepped outside for air. Despite the urgency of the situation, the ship docked in Curaçao as scheduled, allowing passengers and crew members to disembark freely. To the Bradley family, this decision was incomprehensible. What if Amy had been taken off the ship? What if she had been coerced or carried ashore in those critical hours? Allowing people to leave without searching them or their belongings meant losing precious opportunities to uncover clues. The crew conducted what they described as a search, but it was superficial at best. Common areas were checked, announcements were made, and the response seemed more procedural than sincere. The family watched in helpless horror as the hours ticked by, feeling as though Amy was slipping further and further away. The decision to dock as scheduled haunts this case. Was it an oversight, a lack of protocol, or something more deliberate? Whatever the reason, it set the stage for a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The Bradley family, as the hours stretched into an agonizing day, the search for Amy Lynn Bradley intensified, at least in name. Ship personnel claimed to comb through the Rhapsody of the seas, inspecting common areas, guest rooms, and restricted sections. But the results were frustratingly the same. No sign of Amy. Her family, desperate for action, pushed for more. The cruise ship's sprawling decks and hidden corners seemed like a labyrinth, and a superficial sweep wasn't enough. What if she had been injured, trapped, or worse? Despite their pleas, the ship's efforts lacked urgency and thoroughness. The crew appeared unwilling to consider the possibility of foul play or an abduction. Instead, they leaned heavily on dismissive theories that Amy had fallen overboard or wandered away on her own. By the time the FBI was called in, critical hours had been lost. Investigators faced a daunting challenge: a sprawling ship that had already docked, passengers who had disembarked, and evidence that could have been easily destroyed or tampered with. The initial stages of the investigation were hampered by a lack of cooperation and protocol. Cruise ships operate under unique laws depending on their location, and this ambiguity only added layers of complication. The FBI's involvement came too late to preserve crucial evidence or prevent the contamination of the scene. Witness interviews yielded little insight. Some passengers recalled seeing Amy at the ship's nightclub the night before, but no one could account for her whereabouts after the early hours of March 24th. Crew members, though questioned, offered no helpful information, and their statements often felt rehearsed or guarded. No physical evidence, no clothing, personal items, or traces of struggle was ever found. The ship, with its polished surfaces and constantly cleaned areas, left no clues behind. With the lack of leads and the crucial time lost in those initial moments, the investigation quickly hit a dead end. The FBI faced a haunting reality. A young woman had vanished from a cruise ship, leaving no trail, no answers, and no explanation. For the Bradleys, the silence was deafening. Their vibrant, fearless daughter had disappeared, and even with federal authorities involved, they were no closer to understanding what had happened or where Amy might be. In the months and years following Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance, chilling reports began to surface, accounts that suggested Amy might still be alive but trapped in a terrifying nightmare. The first sighting came just months after she vanished. A Canadian tourist claimed to have seen a woman matching Amy's description on a beach in Curaçao. The woman was accompanied by two men who appeared to be watching her closely, as though ensuring she didn't escape. The tourist described her as agitated and frightened, but couldn't confirm her identity. Then, a year later, another disturbing account emerged. A man visiting a brothel in Curaçao reported encountering a woman who identified herself as Amy Bradley. She begged him for help, saying she needed to escape. Shocked and unsure what to do, the man didn't act immediately. When he later returned with authorities, the woman was gone. In the mid-2000s, a Navy officer on shore leave in Barbados claimed to have seen a woman resembling Amy in a department store. The woman, he said, looked anxious and was accompanied by several men who seemed to be monitoring her movements. The officer's account described a distinctive tattoo, a Tasmanian devil holding a basketball that matched one Amy had on her shoulder. These sightings, while unverified, painted a horrifying picture. Could Amy have been abducted from the ship and forced into human trafficking? The Caribbean is known as a hub for such criminal networks, and the reports seem to fit this grim possibility. However, each sighting was fleeting. By the time authorities were notified, the trail had gone cold. No physical evidence ever surfaced to confirm Amy's presence in these locations. For the Bradley family, these reports were both a beacon of hope and a source of anguish. If Amy was alive, it meant there was still a chance to bring her home. But it also meant she might be enduring unimaginable suffering, far from the family that had never stopped searching for her. As the years passed, the sightings grew fewer and the mystery deepened. Was Amy truly alive, held against her will in the shadows of the Caribbean? Or were these accounts cruel coincidences, giving her family false hope in their endless quest for answers? In the 2 decades since Amy Lynn Bradley disappeared, countless theories have emerged, each offering a possible explanation for the unthinkable. Yet none have provided the definitive answer her family so desperately seeks. The first theory centers on accidental death. Could Amy have fallen overboard in the early hours of March 24th? Some believe this scenario is plausible. Perhaps she leaned too far over the balcony or tripped on deck. But Amy was a strong swimmer, and no body was ever recovered. Furthermore, her family insists that she was not the type to take unnecessary risks, casting doubt on this possibility. Another theory suggests voluntary disappearance. Did Amy choose to leave her life behind? Some have speculated that she might have been overwhelmed by life's pressures or drawn to a fresh start. However, those who knew Amy vehemently reject this idea. She was looking forward to her new job and deeply connected to her family. She left behind her passport, money, and essential belongings, hardly the actions of someone planning an escape. The most chilling theory, and the one that haunts her family the most, is abduction. The suspicious interest some crew members showed toward Amy in the days before her disappearance has fueled speculation that she may have been targeted. Could she have been lured or forcibly taken off the ship? The reported sightings of Amy in Caribbean locations add weight to this theory, suggesting she may have been abducted and trafficked. Other theories are more sinister still. Some suggest an organized effort involving members of the ship's crew, pointing to their reluctance to halt the ship's operations or fully cooperate with investigators. Could Amy's disappearance have been part of a premeditated plan involving those entrusted with passengers' safety? The lack of concrete evidence has left all these theories hanging in a haze of uncertainty. No surveillance footage, no physical clues, no definitive witness accounts, nothing to definitively confirm or dismiss any single explanation. Each theory brings its own kind of pain. An accident would mean a tragic loss that might have been preventable. Voluntary disappearance suggests Amy chose to leave her loved ones behind. An abduction. That possibility brings the most fear, the most horror, and the most unanswered questions. Amy Lynn Bradley's case sits at the intersection of mystery and speculation. Each theory feels like a whisper of the truth, but the full story remains frustratingly, achingly out of reach. For the Bradley family, giving up has never been an option. From the moment Amy disappeared, Ron, Eva, and Brad have fought tirelessly to find answers. The grief of losing their daughter and sister was compounded by the haunting possibility that she might still be alive, trapped somewhere, waiting to be rescued. The family has worked with private investigators, law enforcement agencies, and nonprofit organizations dedicated to finding missing persons. They've pursued every lead, no matter how tenuous, and traveled to the Caribbean multiple times, hoping for a breakthrough. Early in their search, the Bradleys offered a substantial reward for information leading to Amy's safe return. Over the years, they've increased this reward, hoping to entice someone to come forward with the truth. Despite this, reliable tips have been few and far between. The family's efforts go beyond their personal tragedy. They've worked to raise awareness about safety on cruise ships, advocating for better protocols to prevent and respond to disappearances at sea. Through interviews, public appearances, and partnerships with advocacy groups, the Bradleys have turned their pain into a mission to protect others. For Ron and Eva, every reported sighting brings a flicker of hope that Amy is still out there, waiting to come home. For Brad, the memories of his sister fuel his determination to keep her story alive. Together, the Bradleys are a testament to unyielding love and the refusal to accept a mystery as the final chapter. Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance didn't just shake her family, it captured the attention of the world. From the moment news broke about her vanishing from a cruise ship, the media latched onto the case, intrigued by its haunting details and unsettling implications. Television programs like Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and Dr. Phil have all featured Amy's story. Each broadcast reignited public interest, often generating new leads or theories. These shows highlighted not only the mystery of her disappearance, but also the potential dangers of traveling aboard cruise ships, sparking widespread conversations about passenger safety. Podcasts and true crime series have also explored Amy's case in depth, analyzing every detail from the ship's flawed initial response to the eerie sightings that suggest she might still be alive. The internet has played a significant role, with online forums and social media amplifying Amy's story to a global audience. This attention has brought valuable exposure, ensuring that Amy's name remains in the public eye. It has also been a double-edged sword. False leads and sensationalized theories have occasionally derailed investigations or caused unnecessary pain for her family. Still, the Bradleys understand the power of the media. Every article, every broadcast, and every podcast episode keeps Amy's case alive in the minds of people around the world. It ensures that even after decades, the search for Amy Lynn Bradley is far from over. Her story has become more than a mystery. It's a cautionary tale, a plea for justice, and a testament to the enduring hope of those who refuse to stop searching. In the wake of Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance, her family turned to the legal system to seek answers and accountability. The Bradleys filed lawsuits against the cruise line, alleging negligence in how the ship handled Amy's disappearance. They argued that the crew's failure to act quickly and their decision to allow passengers to disembark in Curaçao may have cost Amy her life or her freedom. The Bradleys demanded transparency and justice. They wanted the cruise line to admit its mistakes and implement changes to ensure no other family would endure the same nightmare. However, navigating the legal landscape of cruise ship incidents proved to be an uphill battle. Cruise ships operate under complex legal frameworks, often registered in foreign countries and subject to international maritime laws. These loopholes frequently work in favor of the companies, limiting their liability in cases like Amy's. Despite these challenges, the Bradleys' legal fight shone a spotlight on the lack of accountability within the cruise industry. Their persistence also fueled a larger conversation about safety and transparency. Although no lawsuit could bring Amy back, the family's efforts pressured the industry to reevaluate its protocols and policies, potentially saving lives in the process. Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance became a watershed moment for the cruise industry, exposing glaring gaps in safety measures and protocols for handling missing persons at sea. Her case highlighted the shocking reality. Cruise ships were ill-prepared to deal with emergencies like hers, leaving passengers vulnerable and families devastated. Before Amy's case, cruise lines often treated missing persons reports as minor incidents or assumed the individual had gone ashore voluntarily. Lockdowns were rarely implemented, and cooperation with authorities was inconsistent at best. The widespread media attention surrounding Amy's disappearance forced the industry to confront its shortcomings. Over time, her story contributed to the implementation of new safety measures, such as improved surveillance. Modern ships now feature advanced surveillance systems, making it harder for incidents to go unnoticed. Missing person protocols. Many cruise lines have adopted stricter guidelines for responding to disappearances, including immediate notification of authorities and more thorough onboard searches. Passenger safety awareness. Cruise companies began educating passengers on how to stay safe and what to do in emergencies. Amy's case also inspired legislative changes. In the United States, the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act was introduced in the early 2000s, mandating safety improvements such as peepholes in cabin doors, better reporting of crimes, and stricter accountability for cruise lines. Although these changes came too late to help Amy, they reflect the impact of her story and her family's relentless advocacy. The Bradleys' loss became a catalyst for change, ensuring that cruise ship passengers today are safer and better protected than ever before. Yet for the Bradleys, these changes are bittersweet. While they honor Amy's legacy, they remain haunted by the knowledge that her disappearance might have been preventable had these measures been in place sooner. The rise of online communities and social media has breathed new life into Amy Lynn Bradley's case, keeping her story alive long after traditional media coverage waned. True crime forums, YouTube documentaries, and podcasts dedicated to unsolved mysteries have dissected every detail of Amy's disappearance, drawing in a global audience of amateur sleuths and concerned citizens. Platforms like Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter have been instrumental in sharing theories, analyzing clues, and discussing sightings. Users from around the world have contributed insights, sometimes uncovering potential leads that were overlooked or dismissed by authorities. Discussions often center on suspicious actions of the crew, the eerie sightings, and the plausibility of human trafficking. Amy's case also became a focal point for advocates of cruise ship safety reform. Social media campaigns with hashtags like #FindAmyBradley have helped spread awareness, while websites dedicated to missing persons have ensured her name and face remain in the public consciousness. However, the internet's role hasn't always been positive. The Bradley family has had to navigate waves of misinformation, sensationalized theories, and cruel speculations. False leads born from online chatter have occasionally raised their hopes, only to crush them when proven untrue. Despite these challenges, the internet remains a vital tool in the quest for answers. Amy's disappearance has transcended time thanks to the collective determination of online communities. It's a testament to how digital platforms can unite strangers in pursuit of justice, keeping the flame of hope burning for families like the Bradleys. For the Bradley family, the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley is a wound that never heals. The uncertainty surrounding her fate, whether she's alive or gone, suffering or safe, has cast a shadow over their lives for more than 2 decades. Ron and Eva Bradley have carried the unimaginable burden of losing their daughter without closure. Each reported sighting brings a flicker of hope, followed by crushing disappointment when the lead evaporates. The what-ifs are relentless, keeping them trapped in a cycle of fear, grief, and determination. Brad, Amy's brother, has struggled with guilt over her disappearance. As her older sibling, he's spoken about the weight of feeling like he should have protected her. The night they danced together at the ship's nightclub is one he replays endlessly, wondering if there was anything he missed. The prolonged uncertainty has had devastating effects on their mental and emotional health. Grief is complicated enough when there's a sense of finality, but the unknown stretches their pain indefinitely. Despite this, the Bradleys refuse to give up. They channel their anguish into action, continuing to search for Amy and advocate for others in similar situations. Their strength lies in their unity as a family and their unwavering belief that one day they'll have the answers they seek. The psychological toll of this case is not just a side note, it's a reminder of how the ripple effects of an unsolved mystery can devastate the lives of those left behind, turning hope into a double-edged sword. The Bradleys' story is one of resilience, love, and a refusal to let Amy's memory fade into the unknown. Amy Lynn Bradley's case is far from an isolated incident. Over the years, numerous individuals have vanished from cruise ships under equally mysterious circumstances. Cases like that of George Smith, who disappeared during his honeymoon, or Rebecca Corium, a crew member who vanished without a trace, reveal a troubling pattern. These disappearances highlight potential systemic issues within the cruise industry: inadequate surveillance, limited accountability, and slow responses to emergencies. Amy's case, like others, has forced a deeper look into the vulnerabilities of passengers and crew aboard these so-called floating cities. Every missing person's story adds weight to the call for change, reminding us that Amy's disappearance is part of a larger, unresolved problem. As of 2024, Amy Lynn Bradley's case remains one of the most baffling unsolved mysteries in modern history. The FBI continues to list her disappearance as an active case, offering a reward for any information leading to her recovery. The trail, however, has grown cold. No new credible leads have emerged in years, and her family is left clinging to the hope that someone somewhere knows the truth. The search for Amy relies on public awareness and action. If you or anyone you know has information related to her disappearance, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, it could make all the difference. Tips can be reported to the FBI or local authorities. Additionally, sharing Amy's story is crucial. Keeping her case in the public eye ensures that it isn't forgotten, and that pressure remains on those who might hold the answers. For families like the Bradleys, the pain of not knowing is indescribable. Thankfully, organizations exist to support those dealing with the disappearance of a loved one. Groups like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the International Cruise Victims Association provide resources, advocacy, and a sense of community for those navigating the unthinkable. Their work is a lifeline for families like Amy's, ensuring that no one has to face this journey alone. The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the most chilling mysteries of our time. It's a story that has captivated, haunted, and enraged those who hear it, but it's also a reminder of the power of vigilance and hope. Amy's story is not just about a missing person, it's about a family's unrelenting love and the fight for answers in the face of the unknown. If this case has moved you, share it. Talk about it. Help ensure that Amy's name is not lost to time and that her story continues to push for change. The truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. And perhaps with enough eyes on this case, we can bring Amy Lynn Bradley back home, or at the very least, deliver the closure her family so desperately deserves. Do you have the missing piece of the puzzle? Speak up. Someone out there knows the truth, and it's time for it to come to light.